He defended the princess with his life. Now her mother won't let him leave. From high above, the palace looked like a jewel, a mix of sleek metal towers and shining crystal domes, with humming airships drifting lazily between them. To most, it was a symbol of wealth and power. To Rylan Voss, it was just another place that might try to kill him. Rylan walked through the grand gates, his boots clicking against the polished walkway. He had been summoned by the royal court, though he had no idea why. Once a mercenary, now a wandering protector of those who could pay, or those who needed saving, Rylan had learned that being human in a galaxy full of aliens was both a curse and a gift. Humans were underestimated everywhere. That was exactly how he liked it. "Captain Voss," a young guard called, bowing quickly. "The princess awaits in the hall of ceremonies." Rylan nodded, adjusting the strap of his worn leather satchel. "Lead the way." Inside the hall, the air was filled with tension. Nobles and ambassadors from distant worlds murmured in strange languages, their eyes flicking between the princess and the newcomer. Ryland's sharp eyes scanned the room, noting the guards, positions, the exits, and even the ornamental statues that might hide a blade or a trap. Princess Alara stood at the far end of the hall, a figure of elegance and quiet strength. Her silver-blue gown shimmered in the light, and her dark hair was braided with strands of crystal that caught the sunlight. She noticed Rylan immediately, her violet eyes narrowing slightly. Humans were rare here, and a human mercenary even rarer. She could sense he was different. "Captain Voss," she said, her voice soft but firm, "thank you for coming on such short notice." Rylan gave a small nod. "I came as soon as I could. What's the threat?" Before she could answer, the room shoe the palace was unusually quiet that morning. Guards patrolled the halls with disciplined precision, yet their eyes betrayed unease. Even the sunlight, streaming through the tall crystalline windows, seemed hesitant, like it sensed the danger lurking in shadowed corners. Rylan Voss moved through the palace corridors, his human senses alert. Every step he took was careful, measured, and deliberate. He had been expecting this. He had studied the patterns, observed the subtle changes in the behavior of those around him, and now he was ready. Princess Alara walked beside him, her expression determined. Despite the tension, she had begun to trust his instincts. "Captain," she said softly, "I've noticed strange signals from the communication hub again. Someone's trying to interfere with the palace network." Rylan nodded without looking at her. "It's not just signals. They want chaos. The palace will be their weapon if we let them. Today, we stop it." They reached the command center, a room filled with blinking consoles and holoscreens showing live feeds from every corner of the palace. Several guards worked at the terminals, their hands moving quickly as they monitored the perimeter. Ryland's sharp eyes scanned the data. Small discrepancies stood out immediately. Doors that should have been locked were open, surveillance cameras that had been disabled for a few seconds at precise times. It was subtle, but a human's brain could catch these inconsistencies. "They're planning to strike here," he muttered, pointing to a section of the power core feed. "And if they succeed, they could disable the palace defenses entirely. Someone inside is giving them the access codes." Alara's violet eyes widened. "Inside? But who?" Ryland studied the patterns again, cross-referencing guard rotations with staff movements. Slowly, the truth became clear. "It's not just one person," he said. "There are at least two. One wants to create a distraction, the other wants to destroy the palace. If we act wisely, we can catch both." "Then we set the trap," Alara said, her voice firm. "But how?" Ryland smirked faintly. "Humans don't just fight, we think. We'll make them believe the palace is vulnerable. We'll make them confident, and when they strike, we'll be ready." The trap required precision and timing. Ryland split the guards into small teams, giving each specific instructions to simulate weakness in the defenses. He and Alara monitored everything from the command center, anticipating the moves of the traitors and the alien attackers. Hours passed in tense silence. Then, just as the sun began to set, alarms blared throughout the palace. Red lights flashed, and the hum of energy weapons being activated filled the halls. The attackers had arrived, guided by the traitors' careful planning. Rylan didn't hesitate. "Now," he shouted, and the palace came alive. The hallways became a maze of energy barriers and defensive drones, all activated at Ryland's command. Guards moved with precision, blocking key corridors while leaving others seemingly open. The attackers, confident in their knowledge of the palace layout, rushed forward and immediately fell into the trap. Rylan and Alara moved through the chaos like shadows. Using human intuition, he predicted every movement of the attackers, positioning guards to cut off escape routes and trap the aliens in controlled zones. At the same time, he watched the suspected traitors. Lord Kieran and Lady Saria were attempting to access the palace's control center. Kieran's eyes widened when he realized the corridors he thought were clear were now sealed. Saria's fingers hovered over the console, confused as her access was denied. "Captain Voss," Alara whispered. "They're trapped." Rylan nodded. "Humans are good at thinking outside the box. Sometimes you just need to turn the box upside down and watch who falls." With swift, decisive action, Rylan confronted Lord Kieran in the main control chamber. Kieran drew a concealed energy blade, but Rylan was faster. He dodged, rolled, and used a nearby console to knock the blade from Kieran's hands. "You underestimated humans," Rylan said, pinning him against the wall. "We survive when others fail. We improvise. And we never give up." Meanwhile, Princess Alara cornered Lady Saria near the communication hub. Using a small but powerful stun device Rylan had given her, she immobilized Saria, showing courage and skill beyond her years. With the traitors captured, Rylan turned his attention back to the alien attackers. They had been funneled into a controlled zone by the palace's automated defenses, but they were still dangerous. Rylan moved with calm precision, coordinating the guards and using the palace technology to neutralize the threat without unnecessary loss of life. By the time the twin moons rose, the hallways of the palace were silent. The attackers had been defeated, the traitors captured, and the palace defenses fully operational. Queen Lysera arrived at the scene, her eyes scanning the aftermath. She saw the captured traitors, the exhausted guards, and the human who had orchestrated it all. "Captain Voss," she said, her voice measured, "you have saved this palace and perhaps the entire kingdom." Rylan shook his head. "It wasn't me alone. The guards followed instructions. The princess helped. Humans are clever, yes, but teamwork wins battles." Princess Alara smiled, her eyes shining with relief. "He's right, Mother. Captain Voss saved us, but he also taught us to fight smarter, to think ahead. We couldn't have done it without him." The Queen's gaze softened slightly, though she remained cautious. "You have proven yourself, and yet I still cannot fully trust anyone. The galaxy is dangerous and humans unpredictable." Rylan smirked. "That's because humans survive where others fail. We find solutions even when the odds are impossible, and we don't stop." The Queen studied him, perhaps for the first time seeing the full weight of his abilities. He was human, yes, but he was also exceptional, clever, fearless, and unstoppable when he set his mind to a problem. "Very well," she said finally. "You may have earned my respect. But I still insist you remain at court for now." Rylan's jaw tightened, but he nodded. Freedom could wait. Duty had a way of making humans rise to challenges, and he knew the galaxy was watching. That night, Rylan walked through the palace gardens with Princess Alara. The air was cool, carrying the scent of blooming flowers and the faint hum of the city below. "You did more than protect me," Alara said softly. "You changed the way I see everything. Humans, you're more than I imagined." Rylan chuckled. "And humans have always been underestimated. That's our advantage." Alara's smile faded slightly. "Do you think the danger is really over?" Rylan shook his head. "No, this was only one attack, But now we've shown the palace and the traders that humans are not easy to fool. We've bought time, and time is everything. As they watched the twin moons reflect off the palace's crystal towers, Ryland felt a familiar thrill. Humans thrived on challenges. They grew stronger in the face of danger. And he, above all, lived to turn the impossible into possible. The palace had been tested, traitors revealed, and enemies repelled. But the war for the kingdom's safety was far from over. Ryland knew more attacks would come. Smarter, stronger, deadlier attacks. But he also knew something else. As long as humans were involved, hope was never lost. And in the heart of the palace, a single human stood ready. Not because he had to, but because he would. Humans didn't survive by chance. They survived by choice, by courage, and by cleverness. And Ryland Voss embodied all of it. The palace was safe for now. But in the quiet of the night, the seeds of future battles were already growing, and Ryland would be ready for them all. The palace was quiet in the early hours of the morning, but Ryland Voss knew better than to trust silence. Humans had learned long ago that calm often meant danger was waiting to strike. And today, it was more than danger. It was a test, a final trial that would determine the fate of the entire kingdom. Princess Alara approached him as he examined the control panels of the palace's power core. Her violet eyes were steady, showing courage and determination. "Captain," she said softly, "I've traced unusual energy readings near the core." "Someone is planning something catastrophic." Ryland nodded, already moving. "I suspected as much. The raiders from before were just the beginning. Someone inside this palace, someone clever, is ready to finish what they started. And if they succeed, the palace falls, the city falls, and the kingdom could be lost." Alara's hand brushed his arm. "Then we have to stop them together." Ryland smiled faintly. "Always, that's the human way." He quickly assembled the palace guards, assigning each a position and task. This wasn't just a battle, it was a chess game. Every corridor, every chamber, every piece of advanced technology in the palace could be used. Ryland's human ingenuity allowed him to turn even ordinary tools into weapons, even the smallest distractions into traps. The twin moons hung high in the sky, casting pale light over the crystal towers. Suddenly, alarms blared. Red lights flashed as the palace's automated defenses activated. The final attack had begun. Alien raiders flooded the halls, faster and more coordinated than before. But Ryland was ready. He moved like a shadow through the chaos, his mind calculating each step. Guards followed his commands, channels of defense opening and closing at his instruction. Each move seemed simple, almost natural, but it was carefully planned to anticipate the attackers' every action. The traders, Lord Kieran and Lady Saria, had regained partial control of the palace systems. Their faces twisted in frustration as they realized their plans were unraveling. Kieran rushed toward the energy core, hoping to bypass Ryland's defenses. Saria moved toward the communication hub, trying to call in reinforcements from the alien raiders outside. Ryland met Kieran in the main control chamber. The hulking traitor drew his energy blade, swinging with brute force. Ryland ducked and rolled, grabbing a nearby energy conduit and swinging it with precise force. Kieran stumbled, surprised by the human's ingenuity. "You should have known humans adapt," Ryland said calmly, landing a decisive strike that knocked Kieran off balance. "We survive because we think, we improvise, and we fight smarter." At the same time, Princess Alara confronted Saria near the communication hub. She moved quickly, using the stun device Ryland had given her. Saria struggled, but Alara's resolve held firm. "You underestimated me," Alara said, her voice steady. "And you underestimated humans." With the traitors neutralized, Ryland turned his focus to the raiders. They had been funneled into narrow corridors by the palace defenses, but they were still dangerous. Using his human ingenuity, he created small diversions, holographic decoys, controlled energy bursts, and redirected security drones. The attackers fell into confusion, giving the guards the upper hand. The fight reached the palace's energy core, the heart of the entire structure. Rylan knew that if it was destroyed, the palace would collapse in minutes. Alien raiders attempted to force the core's outer chamber, but Rylan anticipated every move. He ducked under swinging energy whips, rolled past laser blasts, and used the palace's own automated systems to trap and isolate enemies. His movements were fluid, precise, and almost inhuman in their timing. Humans were underestimated in the galaxy for many reasons, but the galaxy had never seen a human act like this. Finally, only one raider remained, the leader of the attack. He was massive, armor-plated, and wielding a plasma cannon. Rylan studied him, noting every weakness, every delay, every opening. Then, with a combination of clever maneuvering and human intuition, he disabled the cannon, disarmed the raider, and forced him to surrender. The energy core, now secure, hummed steadily. The palace system stabilized. The kingdom was safe. Queen Lysera arrived in the core chamber, her face a mixture of awe, relief, and cautious admiration. She observed the exhausted guards, the captured traitors, and the human who had orchestrated the entire defense. "Captain Voss," she said, her voice measured, "you have saved not only the palace but perhaps the entire kingdom. Your bravery and your cleverness are unmatched." Rylan wiped sweat from his brow. "It wasn't just me. The guards followed instructions. Princess Alara helped. Humans are clever, yes, but teamwork wins battles. Always." Princess Alara stepped forward, her face bright with relief. "He's right, Mother. Captain Voss didn't just fight. He taught us how to think, to anticipate, to survive. He's not just a protector, he's a teacher, a strategist, and a hero." The Queen's eyes softened slightly. "I see that now. Humans, they are more than I imagined. You've earned my respect, Captain. Perhaps even more than respect, but I understand the need for freedom." Rylan nodded. Freedom had been restricted since he arrived at the palace. He had stayed because duty demanded it, because protecting the princess and the kingdom mattered. But now, after all he had done, the Queen offered a choice. "You may remain here as chief strategist, guiding the palace defenses," Queen Lysera said, "or you may leave and follow your own path. The decision is yours." Rylan considered her words. His human instincts craved freedom, adventure, and challenges beyond palace walls. Yet he had forged bonds, saved lives, and left a lasting mark on this alien world. "I will leave," he said finally, "but not because I am ungrateful. I will leave because humans are meant to move, to explore, to take on the impossible. I've done what needed to be done here, and now it's time to continue the fight elsewhere." The Queen nodded, a rare smile crossing her face. "Then go, Captain, and know that the kingdom will always owe you a debt it can never repay." Rylan walked through the palace gates with Princess Alara by his side. The city sprawled beneath them, glittering with lights and life. Guards and citizens alike watched in awe as the human who had saved the palace prepared to depart. "You will be missed," Alara said softly. "But I know you will keep fighting wherever you go," Rylan smiled. "Humans always fight, Princess, and humans always survive, remember that." He turned toward the horizon, where the stars began to twinkle, hinting at countless worlds, countless battles, and countless opportunities for a human to make a difference. As he stepped into his ship, ready to leave Erendor Prime behind, he felt the familiar thrill of adventure. Humans were not just survivors, they were innovators, warriors, and protectors. And wherever Rylan Voss went, that legacy would follow. The twin moons cast a pale light over the palace one last time. The kingdom was safe. The Queen had learned to respect the unpredictability and brilliance of humans. The princess had seen the courage and intelligence humans could offer. And Rylan Voss, the human who had fought, survived, and outsmarted impossible odds, was free once more. The galaxy awaited him, full of challenges, dangers, and opportunities. and he would face them all. Humans always did. As the engines of his ship roared to life, Rylan cast one last glance at the palace. He had defended the princess with his life, faced impossible odds, and shown that humans, underestimated for so long, could change the course of events in ways no one expected. He was a human. He was a hero, and the universe would never forget him. With the sudden roar of engines. Outside, the massive palace gates exploded inward, and alien raiders poured through. They were tall, lanky creatures with metallic skin and glowing red eyes. They carried strange weapons that hummed with energy. Chaos erupted instantly. The nobles screamed, guards scrambled. Princess Alara froze for a moment, fear flashing across her face. Rylan didn't think. He ran. He reached her side, pulling her behind a tall column. His hand went instinctively to the plasma pistol at his hip. He fired, the shots accurate, precise. One raider went down, another staggered back, but they kept coming. "Captain," a guard shouted, "we need more men." "I've got this," Rylan growled. His eyes scanned the hall. He noticed the ceremonial banners hanging above. Their metallic frames could be used as barriers. With quick movements, he shoved them into place, creating a shield. The raiders slammed into it, some tumbling backward, giving him and the princess a moment to breathe. "Stay close," he ordered. Princess Alara nodded, her fear tempered by the strange confidence she felt from him. She didn't know why, but this human felt like safety incarnate. Rylan moved like a storm, ducking, firing, and weaving through the chaos. He noticed one raider sneaking toward the princess from behind. With lightning speed, he threw a small device from his satchel. It exploded in a burst of bright light, disorienting the creature. Before it could recover, Rylan tackled it to the ground, pinning it with surprising strength for a human. "You okay?" he asked, eyes scanning the room for more threats. "Yes," Alara replied, steadying herself. "Thanks to you." The raiders regrouped, and their leader, a hulking brute with jagged metal armor, raised a weapon that looked far deadlier than anything Rylan had faced before. The energy blade glowed with a deep crimson light. Rylan smirked under his breath. Time to see if humans can really do this. He leaped forward, dodging the first swing. He rolled, using the momentum to kick the alien back. He ducked under another strike, grabbed a piece of the fallen architecture, and swung it like a bat. The raider roared in surprise as it stumbled. The hall was in chaos, but Rylan never faltered. His mind was sharp, his body faster than anyone expected. Every move was precise. Every decision mattered. He was human, yes, but humans had something rare: ingenuity. Finally, the leader was cornered. Rylan jabbed his blaster, creating a small energy net that trapped the brute. The raider thrashed, but it was no match for human cleverness. One by one, the rest of the invaders fell, retreating through the broken gates they had smashed open. Within minutes, the hall was silent except for the ringing in everyone's ears. Rylan lowered his weapon, breathing heavily. Princess Alara was staring at him, awe and gratitude mixed in her eyes. "You saved my life," she said softly. Rylan shrugged, wiping sweat from his brow. "Just doing my job." But before either of them could take a moment to breathe, a stern voice cut through the hall. "Captain Voss," said Queen Lysera, stepping forward from the throne dais. Her presence was commanding, almost magnetic. She was regal in a way that made Rylan feel like a child in her presence. "You have performed admirably, but I cannot allow you to leave. Not yet." Rylan blinked. "Excuse me." The Queen's gaze was sharp. "For your own safety and for the princess's, you will remain at court. Your skills are invaluable, and we cannot risk you leaving when enemies still lurk in the shadows." Rylan frowned. He had fought countless enemies, survived countless battles, and now he was being told he couldn't leave by a queen who had no idea who he was. It wasn't the first time someone tried to cage a human, but humans were stubborn, humans were clever, and humans hated being trapped. "I don't take orders well," he said calmly, though his fingers twitched near his weapon. Queen Lysira's eyes didn't waver. "This is not a request. You stay for the princess, for the kingdom." Princess Alara looked between them, conflicted. She had felt safe with Rylan, trusted him with her life, and now she was being forced into this strange political trap. Rylan sighed. "Fine," he muttered, "but only because the princess is involved, not because of you." The queen raised an eyebrow, clearly amused by his defiance. Rylan smirked back, human spirit, alive and well, even in the face of alien kingdoms and royal authority. That night, Rylan was escorted to the guest quarters in the palace. He unpacked his satchel, checked his weapons, and looked out over the city. From here, he could see the distant mountains, the airships, and the glowing markets below. "Looks peaceful," he muttered to himself. Too peaceful. He had a feeling that this was only the beginning. The raid had been bold, almost too precise. Someone had planned it, and the palace walls wouldn't protect them forever. And if the enemies returned, he needed to be ready. Princess Alara tapped gently on his door. "Captain, can I come in?" Rylan nodded. She stepped inside, holding a small hollow device. I want to help," she said. "I don't want to be a princess who only hides while others fight." Rylan studied her. Her courage reminded him of humans, stubborn, daring, unafraid to face danger even when outmatched. He realized she was already part of the fight, whether she knew it or not. "You have to trust me," he said, "and you have to be smart. The next attack, it won't be so easy." Alara nodded. "I trust you." Rylan allowed himself a small smile. "Good, then we'll get through this, together." Outside, the twin suns dipped below the horizon, casting the palace in shades of red and gold. Inside, a human had just proven that even in a galaxy of advanced alien civilizations, ingenuity, courage, and determination could turn the tide of battle. And for Rylan, it was only the beginning. The queen might try to keep him at the palace. The enemies might return stronger. But one thing was certain: humans were never just pawns. And this human, in particular, was ready to show the galaxy exactly what that meant. The morning sun streamed through the tall windows of the palace, bouncing off the polished floors and the intricate tapestries that told stories of the kingdom's past. Rylan Voss stood in the courtyard, watching the guards train. His human eyes caught every movement, every flaw in their technique, and every opportunity for improvement. Humans might be underestimated in the galaxy, but skill, strategy, and quick thinking had always been their strength. A young captain of the guard approached, bowing slightly. "Sir, the Queen has requested your presence in the council chamber." Rylan nodded, sheathing his plasma pistol. He had no doubt that this request would not end with mere conversation. Humans like him were never just invited, they were summoned for a reason. Inside the council chamber, the air was thick with tension. Ambassadors from distant systems leaned forward in their seats, their alien features expressing curiosity, suspicion, or barely concealed disdain. Queen Lysira sat at the head of the table, her expression calm but unyielding. Princess Alara stood at her mother's side, fidgeting slightly but keeping her eyes on Rylan. "Captain Voss," the queen began, her voice smooth but firm, "you have proven your bravery. The palace owes you a debt that cannot be measured, yet bravery alone is not enough. We face threats we cannot face alone. I need your guidance." Rylan raised an eyebrow. "Guidance?" "Yes," the queen said, leaning forward slightly. "The raiders who attacked the palace, this was not a simple act of theft or revenge. Their movements were precise, calculated. Someone orchestrated it, someone who knows the palace intimately. We need someone capable of seeing what others cannot. That is why you stay." Rylan's jaw tightened. He had faced enemies before, some of whom had fleets of ships and weapons far more advanced than anything humans had. But this felt different. There was a human cunning in the queen's words, and a danger he could sense but not yet see. "Very well," he said finally. "I'll help. But I won't be a pawn, and I don't take orders lightly." The queen's lips curved into a faint smile. "I expected nothing less. For the next few days, Rylan became a fixture at the palace. He trained the royal guards, showing them how to think like humans in battle, improvising, predicting enemy movements, and using their surroundings. Many of the guards were impressed. Some were skeptical, but slowly his ideas began to take root. Princess Alara visited him frequently, bringing reports of strange occurrences within the palace. Objects moved unexpectedly. Secret corridors seemed to appear where none existed before. Whispers of meetings held behind closed doors reached her ears. "I don't like it," she told Rylan one afternoon as they walked through the palace gardens. The air smelled of flowering vines and ozone from the distant city generators. "Something is happening here, and it's not the raiders." Rylan nodded, scanning the hedges and fountains. "I noticed it too precise, too well-timed. Someone inside the palace helped them or at least distracted us long enough for the raid to succeed." Alara's eyes widened. "But who? Everyone here seems loyal." "Appearances are deceiving," Rylan said. "Humans know that better than most. I need to find the patterns, the inconsistencies. That's how you find traitors." Over the next several days, Rylan observed everything. Guards, servants, nobles, even the queen's closest advisors. He noticed small things. A subtle glance, a hesitation in a bow, a whisper just a little too quiet. Slowly, a picture began to form. Someone within the palace wanted chaos, and perhaps more than just chaos. One evening, as the suns dipped below the horizon, Rylan and Princess Alara sat on the balcony overlooking the city. The lights of the capital shimmered like stars fallen to the ground. "Captain," Alara said softly, "if there really is a traitor here, how do we stop them?" Rylan took a deep breath. "First, we gather information. Then we set a trap. Humans are good at thinking outside the box. We'll use their arrogance against them. They think they're clever, but they don't know we're watching." Alara smiled faintly, admiration in her eyes. "You really think humans can outsmart them?" Rylan looked at her, eyes steady. "We have to, because if we fail, the kingdom doesn't survive." Days passed, and Rylan's suspicions grew. He noticed one advisor, Lord Kieran, always near the Queen during important meetings but often absent during attacks. His movements were deliberate, but too casual, as if he wanted to be overlooked. Another, Lady Soria, whispered to outsiders more often than necessary. Their behaviors were small, almost invisible, but Rylan had learned that small cracks often led to great falls. Then came the test. A minor attack on the palace supply transport, a small skirmish that was meant to be unnoticed. Rylan watched it unfold from the observation deck, noting the movements of the guards and the attackers. Everything was too perfect. Someone had planned this. Someone inside had guided them. Rylan moved quickly. He used a hidden access corridor to intercept the attackers. The fight was quick, controlled, and precise. Rylan's human instincts allowed him to act faster than anyone else in the palace. He captured 2 of the alien raiders alive and brought them before the Queen. "They were guided," he explained calmly. "Someone in this palace is giving them information. Someone wants you weak." Queen Lysera's eyes narrowed, but she said nothing. Princess Alara's hand rested lightly on Rylan's shoulder. "I trusted you to protect us," she said. "And you're right, I can feel it too." Rylan nodded. "We need a plan. We can't just wait for the next attack. We have to anticipate it, and we have to find the traitor first." The Queen finally spoke. "Then we will follow your plan, Captain Voss. But understand this, if you fail, the consequences will be severe." Rylan's jaw tightened. Humans thrived under pressure. The greater the challenge, the sharper their minds became. He wasn't worried. Rylan began setting subtle traps and monitoring palace activity. He instructed Princess Alara to keep her usual schedule but with small changes, moving certain appointments, leaving rooms at unexpected times. They watched reactions. Every movement of the palace staff, every glance, every whispered word was noted. Slowly, patterns emerged. Lord Kieran had a habit of slipping away before meetings ended. Lady Saria lingered near the communications hub more often than necessary. Their behaviors, when combined, formed a web, one that pointed to a conspiracy more dangerous than anyone had imagined. One night, as Rylan examined schematics of the palace, a soft tap on the window caught his attention. Princess Alara stood there, holding a small hollow device. "I think I found something," she said, handing it to him. "These messages intercepted communications. Someone is planning the next attack, and it's coming soon." Ryland studied the device, his eyes narrowing. The coordinates pointed directly to the palace's power core. If the attackers struck there, the palace could fall in hours. And if the traitor inside helped them, it would be a massacre. "We have to act fast," he said. "I need to prepare the guards, set defenses, and keep the traitor guessing. Humans are good at improvisation. Let's hope the traitor isn't expecting it." Alara nodded, determination in her eyes. "I'll help. I can alert the guards quietly. No one will suspect me." Ryland smiled faintly. Humans had allies in unexpected places. So did aliens, apparently, but trust had to be earned. And he trusted Princess Alara. She was brave, clever, and willing to fight. That was enough. As the twin moons rose over Urindor Prime, casting pale light over the palace, Ryland prepared. The next attack would come soon. He knew it. And when it did, he would show the galaxy exactly why humans were not to be underestimated. For now, the palace seemed calm. But beneath the surface, a storm was brewing. Alliances would be tested. Trust would be broken. And in the heart of the palace, a single human stood ready to defend not just a princess, but an entire kingdom. Because humans, though small, fragile, and underestimated, had something the galaxy could never ignore: ingenuity, courage, and a will that refused to bend. And Ryland Voss was living proof.